Before we dive into our teaching this morning, let me just take a moment to express to you gratitude from our leadership team at Next Church. Gratitude for your continued giving during such a difficult time. And I just want to let you know that this is not just benefiting Next Church, the fact that you are continuing to so faithfully give, but this is also affecting very much the 4 organizations that Next Church has pledged to support and to be a part of. As you know, there are 3 organizations locally: the Women's Center in Brevard, the Young Life Ministry out of Transylvania County, and also the Boys and Girls Club rely very heavily on gifts from Next Church. And then there's one international organization that we give to, and that is Starfish, which is an organization that ministers to the poorest of the poor in the country of Haiti. I know that they are grateful, and we are so grateful for your continued giving. If you have any questions about how to give at this time, you can take a look at the screen. And again, I just want to say thank you, and I cannot wait until we can get back together as a church and look each other face to face, and who knows, maybe even shake hands again someday. I love you, church, and I hope that you enjoy this morning's teaching. Good morning, Next Church. Brenda and I are seemingly on top of the world today in more ways than one. We're really enjoying today and spending a little bit of time together. We drove down to North Georgia, not too far from Blue Ridge, Georgia, and we're way up on top of Black Rock Mountain. It kind of reminded me as we were driving along what it must have been like for those 2 followers of Jesus who were walking from Jerusalem after the rumor of his resurrection. They were walking from Jerusalem to Emmaus, and it was only a 7-mile walk, but man, you know, when you're walking 7 miles, that's a long time to be talking, and that's a long time to be thinking about all of the events that have just taken place. And if your heart is saddened and you're fearful about something, that's a long time to be thinking about it as you're walking 7 miles. Well, this was quite a long drive. It was about 2.5 hours for Brenda and I to get here, and we were not sad. We were not upset about anything, worried about anything, just having one of those carefree drives, and it was fun. It was wonderful. But these men, on that day that they were walking to Emmaus, had hearts that were heavy. I want to read for you from Luke 24, verses 13 to 35. Now that same day, this was the day of Jesus' resurrection and the news that Jesus was no longer in the tomb. But that same day, 2 of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. They were walking with each other and talking with each other about everything that had happened. As they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them. But they were kept from recognizing him. Now, it doesn't say there, and this is a misnomer. A lot of times people will think that God himself kept them from recognizing them. But it wasn't necessarily God who kept them from recognizing him. It could have been their own fear and their own dismay, their own hurt and pain that kept them from recognizing Jesus. And how often in our lives has that happened? But he asked them, "What are you discussing together as you walk along?" They stood still, their faces downcast, and one of them, named Cleopas, asked him, "Are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened there in these days?" Now, as I read that, I thought about those many times that I'm lost in my own pain, lost in my own worries, and how often somebody does something or says something that just makes me want to stop and say, "Are you kidding me? Do you not realize what's going on? Do you not see into my heart and know what I'm experiencing right now?" And no, the truth is people don't. But Jesus, walking with them, he knew their pain. He knew everything that was going on, and they were responding to him in pain. And Jesus didn't turn and say, "Well, if you're going to talk to me that way, I'm just going to leave." No, because Jesus had a deeper understanding and a greater love than we can comprehend. and patiently he walked with them through the pain. What things? He asked. About Jesus of Nazareth, they replied. He was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. Now I want you to just stop here a second and notice they didn't say what they had been saying just weeks earlier, that he was the Messiah, the Son of God. See, suddenly when circumstances changed, then they lost all belief in who Jesus really was. And all they saw him as was a good man, a good prophet that sadly was now gone from their presence. What Jesus wants and what they're going to find out is that even through the most difficult times, he is still Messiah. He is not just a good man, not just a good prophet. He is still King. And so they went on and explained that the chief priests and our rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. And what is more, it is the third day since all of this took place. In addition, some of our women amazed us. They went to the tomb early this morning, but they didn't find his body. They came and told us that they had seen a vision of angels who said that he was alive. And then some of our companions went to the tomb, and they found it just as the women had said, but they did not see Jesus. How many times in our lives, even though we hear the good news, we just can't bring ourselves to believe it. And because we don't see him and we don't see the results ourselves, how easy it is to slip into disbelief. Now, I'm not preaching this to you this morning out of my own recognition that somehow I've made it, that somehow I'm beyond that disbelief. Because the truth is, there have been times in my life, even recently, where because I was not seeing it personally, I was having a hard time believing. He said to them, "How foolish you are and how slow to believe all that the prophets have spoken to you. Did not the Messiah say that I have to suffer these things and then he will enter his glory?" And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. So as the men approached the village to which they were going, Jesus continued on as if he were going farther. But they urged him strongly, "Stay with us, for it is nearly evening, and the day is almost over." So he went in to stay with them. Now I want to just pause there for a second to remind us that Jesus never forces himself upon us. He is walking along. Jesus is going the way that he promised he would go. It is up to us to recognize him and to invite him to stay with us. He will not force his way in. He will not force his way to bring us peace, but he's there and he's offering it openly. When he was at the table with them, he took bread and he gave thanks. He broke it and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were open and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. And they asked each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us?" And they got up and returned at once to Jerusalem. There they found the 11 and those with them assembled together and said, "It is true, the Lord has risen and has appeared to Simon." Then the two told him what had happened on the way and how Jesus was recognized by them when he broke the bread. There's an old song that asks the question, "O soul, are you weary and troubled? Is your heart downcast?" There's joy, there's peace for a look at the Savior. That's what Jesus was there to do that day. To give them a peace that passes all understanding, a joy that no one else could duplicate. And he came and he walked among them. Jesus is walking with us today. The question is, will we recognize him? Are we so caught up in our worries and the things that we don't understand that we fail to recognize that he is there to bring us incredible peace? They asked each other, were not our hearts burning within us while he walked with us and talked with us on the road and opened scriptures to us? My friends, I want to tell you that more than anything else, what he wants to do today is to remind us, let our hearts burn within us at his presence. But he wants to remind us that he has never left us nor forsaken us, and he never will leave us nor forsake us. He is there. Let's recognize him. I love you, church. He loves you more.